fire starters. Welcome to the Kindling Project podcast. So excited to be here with my partner in crime, Melissa. Hey girl, what's going on?
Oh my gosh, crazy morning. I've already launched a website and an annual report and like put out a few fires, and now we're doing 2 podcasts today. So off to the races.
Yeah, it's a big day for us. It's always fun. I love Thursdays because I feel we can just sit back and talk to some really awesome women and get their stories. And, you know, everyone has a story to tell, and it's always fun to hear it.
Yeah.
Speaking of stories, Mel, have you been keeping up with Justine Bateman?
Yeah.
Bateman. Have you heard the whole thing about aging gracefully and her new book? I think it's called Face.
You know, it's showing up in my social media. I've seen the photos of her. I've kind of seen the pro, like, go for it girl comments, and also the, oh, she looks old comments. And the whole thing is just icky for me. Like, why can't we just let people live in their skin and make their choices and not, be in the peanut gallery commenting about all the time how women look too old, too young. Had surgery, didn't have surgery. It's too much, right?
Yeah, I mean, I see her point in the sense where maybe we've gone overboard with injectables and plastic surgery. And before it was sort of like, oh, she had plastic surgery. And now to her point, it's like, oh, when are you getting your plastic surgery? We've shifted the conversation. But I do feel like I was watching her on the Today Show or something, and I felt like she was super aggressive in the sense too from, okay, I'm an injectable girl. Now you're making me feel bad for wanting to care about how I'm aging. So I don't want to make her feel bad about her choices, but I felt like she was in many ways judging me. Mm-hmm. She doesn't even know me, obviously, but you know what I'm saying? That's
your
how
choices,
I felt.
Right. Like it's, whatever you do, it's the wrong choice if you're a female, right? And it does feel very orchestrated. These sort of like social and etiquette and cultural wars that like get drummed up, pitting women against women. I mean, I'm really from the stance of you do you, right? If you want injectables, right. if you want some plastic surgery, if you want to age naturally. I mean, it does seem a little bit in my mind that the Gen X women in general are bucking some of it. I mean, of course, there's probably a huge percentage doing the cosmetic procedures, but like, I also saw something, I think, with Minnie Driver, like letting her hair go gray, and like it's just this gorgeous, steely gray head of hair anyway. Like, yeah. I feel like I've been kind of letting gray come in. I've been going blonder and blonder, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never gonna have that silver, like magical mane of hair if I go gray. But, I'm all for having your own choices. Right.
No, it's true. And I would love to just go gray because going to my colorist every 4 weeks, it's getting really expensive. Because I don't know why, but I mean, I am like grays every other day. Right. It's happening really fast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it works with your like Latina complexion, but because I don't know if you remember, had dark brown hair. And the blonder I go, the easier it is to get away with the gray. Like it's just the silver and the gold just blend together better.
So maybe that's why we have so many blondes in our age group.
100%. So that you don't have like a skunk stripe on the top of your head.
So talking about women power and just sort of standing in your own truth. I mean, today's guest, Mel, come on. Amazing. I'm such a crush, like girl crush on her. I literally am like, hello, Laura, I need to be with you all the time. Can you please be my friend? It's really, really desperate. But she's that cool.
She is really cool. And I don't even know her that well, but I'm going to tell my story that I reminded you guys of, is that I had seen her, not met her personally, but my friend Rich has a intersectionality conference called Intermittent in Michigan. And she was the MC, I don't know, a few years ago. And I just was so impressed with her humor and her ease. And it was like a tough conversation. It's not the kind of conference that's like yoga and like gift bags. Like it's hard stuff. And she just, moved through the different speakers and conversations and kept people laughing. And I was like, oh, love this girl. And then, COVID happened and years went by. And you and I were at an event at Shinola, And we were standing at the top of a staircase checking in. And I was like, hey, for our big event, I saw this total kick-ass female empowerment, like comedian, MC woman. I can't remember her name, but my friend Rich is here. We're going to get it from him. And she walked up the steps. And
I remember that you were like,
I manifested her. There she is. I'm like, Monica, you got to go up and talk to her and ask her to be on her podcast.
And that's pretty much what I did. I've been stalking her ever since.
Perfect.
So introduce her, please,
okay,
to our
so
listeners.
I am going to do that. All right. Our guest today is Laura Khalil. Laura Khalil is the founder and CEO of Brave by Design. Laura helps ambitious female entrepreneurs rebalance the scales of financial justice in their favor and get paid their worth. That's also what we're all about at the Kindling Project, women getting paid. She combines her experience as an award-winning marketer and business strategist to help clients significantly grow their revenue without relying on endless social media, dancing on TikTok, or burning out. She's consulted for brands such as Intel, Twitter, and GE on global marketing strategy. She frequently speaks to audiences on personal branding, sales, and communication. She's spoken at WeWork, Paylocity, Creative Mornings, Zing Train, and more. She loves dogs, bike rides, and is addicted to butter pecan ice cream. So, I mean, she's our girl. Welcome,
ding,
Laura.
ding, 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 right? What did I tell you?
Yeah.
All over, everything's perfect. I'm like, winner.
Welcome. How are you?
Oh my gosh, what an intro. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. And among such amazing women, I also love the conversation you were having at the top of the show. I think we'll probably tie it into some of the things we talk about as we go. But yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you for, I really feel like I missed my calling as a comedian. I think like in another life, there's like in the multiverse, I am like on stage doing comedy. So whenever I can inject humor into my work, I love to do it. So I'm glad that you found my emceeing at intermittent entertaining. That was really fun.
Oh, absolutely. Like Monica and I have a good friend who's a makeup artist, but before she became a makeup artist, she was in Second City in Chicago. And you kind of remind me of her a little bit. Like, I was just like, oh, she's probably been like at Second City or something.
Did you train at all to be a comedian? Have you ever gone on stage with that purpose?
No, it's honestly like sometimes the funniest people you'll know, and this is true of a lot of comedians, are just the people who have had like a lot of trauma. And so like the way that we deal with it is through humor. I mean, honestly, like you could probably ask more comedians about this. They'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen some stuff. And so it's just how, it's like two sides of the coin, right? Like you can either cry or you can laugh.
Yeah.
And there's some of us who just choose to laugh because it helps us get through stuff. And then sharing that with the world, helping other people laugh through the challenges of life that are inevitable can really just help lighten the load.
100%.
So true.
Yeah.
So, okay, Laura, there's so much so many layers here. We can go in many directions, but let's just hone in on this for a moment, okay? You say, I'm here to be your business big sister and help you get paid fairly and rebalance the scales of financial justice in our favor. I truly believe that fortune favors the brave. So giddy up, bitches. We ride at dawn. Aman, come on. That's awesome.
Let's go. Come on.
So what is that all about? And how did you get to that statement?
Yeah, I'll tell you. This is really through lived experience. So I spent many years cutting my teeth in Silicon Valley, working in the startup world, male-dominated industry. In my last role, I faced a lot of the challenges that women face. I was frequently told I needed to be nicer. I needed to smile more. I needed to stop intimidating men in the boardroom. And, at the time, I was like in my mid-20s. And I was like, what the heck? Like, these guys are way more experienced, way more knowledgeable. I felt like I'm trying to learn from them too, but I was very much penalized for those traits of being bold, assertive, ambitious, driven, confident. You know, the things that we look for in men, and we say that's a leadership quality. In women, that's a bitch. And so I was having a lot of problems and a lot of challenges and struggles. And I was doing what I like to call collecting an unofficial PhD and getting laid off, which, by the way, I am a pro. If anyone needs to get laid off, just come talk to me. I will tell you exactly how to do it. And so I just kept getting laid off.
We lived in Silicon Valley for 8 years and experienced 4.
You know.
I know. It's the culture of like staff up, staff down, get a client, lose a client. Like the people are just, they're just resources, not human beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not human. It's brutal.
It is.
2013, almost 10 years ago, actually 10 years ago in May of 2023, I was at my last full-time gig and I was banging my head against the wall. The marketing team of which I was a part of was in complete disarray, and they said, "You're out." And I thought I really had this moment where we've all probably heard the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. And I was doing the same thing over and over. I was going from job to job to job to job, expecting that it would be better. But the problem was that I was too scared to do the thing I knew would help me, which was ultimately changing my circumstances, because you cannot change other people. You can't. It's impossible. Anyone who's been married has tried to change the partner and realized, oh, wait a minute, they're doing their own thing. And so I couldn't change others. I couldn't change my bosses. All I could do was say, I have to put myself in a different situation. And I realized there was nothing actually wrong with me. I've never felt like there is something inherently wrong with my personality. I just felt I was in the wrong roles. And so I got laid off. I had this box of stuff. I walked out of that office and I was spitting mad, man. I was upset. And I said, Laura, you can be a victim of your history or a master of your destiny. And you get to decide if you're going to keep replaying the record or you're going to start a whole new track. And I said, fuck this shit. I'm starting my business because I knew I'd always wanted to do it. I also knew I'd always been too scared to do it. And I realized that the pain of staying the same was greater than the pain of changing. And I just could not stay the same. And by the way, in that job, to go back to your question, one of the reasons I was so upset is because I had realized in the last month that I was there that I was being underpaid by $100,000.
Wow.
I thought, because I was so scared to talk about money, like so many women, I did not want to have conversations. I didn't want to talk to my peers. And one of my colleagues' husbands, we were out to dinner and I was telling him like what was going on. And he said, what are you making? And of course, I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to tell him. Oh, that's like so uncomfortable. And he was in the same industry as I was. We had the same amount of experience. We're the same age. Both went to great schools. $100,000. And like, they couldn't believe it. They were like, why, what? And I felt so embarrassed, you know, I felt like ashamed and I felt so bad and I felt so stupid. And I was like, how have I not, my avoidance of this one thing, my avoidance of talking about this has put me in a situation that is, for me, it was shameful. So when I left, I was hell-bent on figuring out how to run a business, how to be paid really well for what I did. And I began to transform my relationship with money. And that started by talking about it. And I'll tell you just quickly what that meant for me was like I said, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you will begin to transform. That transformation for me happened quick. And within 6 weeks of leaving that job, I had my first Fortune 500 client. I had never worked with the Fortune 500 before this. And since then, I only worked with the Fortune 500, consulting with them and helping build my revenue significantly along the way. I mean, so that's the long and short of it. Maybe that was a very long response. But I just think women do not pay attention. They don't want to talk about money. We're surrounded by other women and our peers who don't want to talk about money because it's impolite, or, it's like not what we do, or that's like gross. And so we stay where we are. And that's exactly what the patriarchy wants. So
exactly.
Giddy up!
Yeah. I mean,
gotta go. Sorry, I hope I'm not blowing out everybody's earphones right now.
No way. I mean, really, the cultural pressure not to talk about money really serves some people. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why can't the salary ranges be posted? And I mean, I do think it certainly wasn't our Gen X generation that made this happen, but the millennials have been fighting for, post the salary ranges. And yes. I mean, it's just not reasonable to leave these giant discrepancies. Like I always see these statistics that, when white women make 70 cents on the dollar of white men, and then minority women make less on the dollar, and, all of those numbers. And those even seem low to me because look at you, like you're 100,000 off, right?
100,000 off.
And I know,
yeah.
I've had a design agency for 12 years, and, we're women owned, and I do pay people well, and we have done well, but I know on some level that we undercharge, that we overwork, that my male peers are getting contracts and they're not doing as good of work, and they're not providing the level of service. And it's just like something that's always there that you're fighting against. It's gnawing at you.
Always. And I will say, because I work with a lot of women in consulting or run their own businesses now, this issue around, it's not really even an issue of what we're worth, because our worth is immeasurable. But how we price our services, the value we're providing to the client, how we quantify that, even among quote unquote successful business owners that I work with, is a daily struggle. And this is actually one of the most important reasons that I think it's important to have an advisor, a mentor, a coach, someone in your industry who's like actually knowing what's going on and can tell you, listen, I see people in your industry and I see what they're charging because I talk to them every single day, and you are way under. Without that perspective, we're sort of operating in a vacuum. I remember actually at the event that we were at together, which was an entrepreneur's event, there was the speaker who came up at the beginning, and he said this great quote, which I've never forgotten. He said, "An entrepreneur alone is an entrepreneur at risk." And it is so true, because when we are alone with ourselves, we are operating without information, without knowledge, without support, without community, and it is a freaking lonely and dangerous place to be.
That is so true. But how do you, I mean, it sounds like you were able to overcome that barrier. But for a lot of women, you're right. It's like they don't want to be looked at assertive or pushy and all those things, aggressive. But why do you think women in particular, is it just that? Is it an optics of just wanting to be liked? Well, I don't understand why women would not raise their hands more and have those tough conversations. Men don't seem to have a problem with it.
I think it's a very, it's a great question. I think it's a really complex issue. And I think that some of the things going on is, one, not every woman is like me or like you, Monica, or like you, Mel. Like everyone's a little bit different. So the first thing I want to say is, for those who are listening who are not like me, who are not like a bull in the china shop, who just want to go. That's like okay. I would actually argue you don't have to be like me. You actually have to be like you. Whatever it is that is natural to you, we need to see more of that. I just happen to have a lot of what we might refer to as a lot of masculine energy and drive in my work. That's just who I am as a person. But whatever's natural to you, whoever you are, however you want to express yourself, that's okay. I gave a talk actually at Intermittent prior to emceeing that event a few years ago called The Benefits of Being a Bitch, which is really talking about how all the things I thought penalized me were my greatest assets. All the things that penalized me as a full-time employee were my greatest assets as a leader, an entrepreneur. And I just didn't realize it. And I would challenge anyone who, if you do feel like you are the quote unquote bitch, or if you do feel like there are parts of your personality that are penalizing you, you need to bring some love into them. And you need to realize how those traits have actually served you, how they can help you move forward, and that you actually don't need to change who you are. You need to change the circumstances and the people you surround yourself with. Now, why do women fear being themselves, whoever they are? I think there's tons of social conditioning. I think that women, going back, by the way, to what you said about Justine Bateman, because I made a note about it as y'all were talking. I was like, I want to talk about that. Women are, in many cases, the strongest critics of other women. We keep each other in check.
Yes.
And so that, to me, it's like, God bless Justine Bateman. Awesome. Do your thing, girl. Don't shit on other women. And by the way, we don't need to shit on her either. We just, like you said, just live your life. Do your thing. And so we keep each other in check because we're constantly going after other women. We're constantly judging other women. I mean, we talk a lot about the patriarchy, but the patriarchy is put in this great structure that says women will control each other. And so if I am taught by other women that it's bad to talk about money, it's impolite, that, you know, like, oh, you should just be nice. Oh my God, just like, don't make a fuss. It's fine. It's not a big deal, because that's what you see in your environment. That's what your family taught you. That's part of your quote unquote family culture, societal culture.
Oh, and your girl group teaches you. I mean, in elementary school, it's like that whole crabs in a bucket. Like the girls pull each other down. And I mean, I really, it's not something I fully understand or I get, and it just pains me. Like, why are we our own worst critics? And why are we tearing each other apart? And it's hard enough already for us. Like, let's band together. And I've told Monica this a bunch of times in the last year. I joined a mastermind. It wasn't a good fit for me. I'll say that up front. It was very heavily male oriented and turned out to be like borderline like male advocacy. Like I'm out of here, dudes. So it wasn't a good fit for me. However, when I look back on what did I get out of it, the number one thing that impressed me the most is how much these dudes have each other's backs. You know, one of them writes a book and they fly across the country to the book signing and they buy 20 copies for their whole team. You know, and a woman writes a book and her friends are like, who does she think she is? And, oh, did you see she keeps like hacking her book on her Facebook? And I'm just like, you know, one of the reasons they are able to consolidate power is they have each other's backs.
They do.
They do.
And they support each other. And, you know, so what I would say to women is a very tangible thing. I tell this to business owners all the time. So if you're a business owner, you don't go get advice from your business from mommy and daddy. You do not. I mean, if they're not entrepreneurs, why are you taking business advice from people who know nothing about what you do? And their primary directive is for your safety and security, not your growth and expansion. So I would say the same thing to any individual. If you are surrounded, we've all heard that quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. If you are surrounded by people who are not at least a couple steps ahead of you and have their hand out to pull you up,
Yes.
you are around the wrong group of people.
Yes.
Most of my friends, seriously, most of my friends, the closest people to me are frankly doing better than me financially. Their businesses are bigger than mine. I'm inspired by them.
Yes.
And they are the people who I pay attention to. I don't spend very much time. I mean, like, I love my family, but my family doesn't even know barely what I do for a living.
Right.
Like, they're like, I don't know. She speaks and we don't understand. Doesn't matter. I don't need their approval for it. Right. What I need, and that's the other thing, I don't need their approval. And so think about, where are you getting approval and validation? Are you constantly currying for external approval? Because what that is like filling a void. Mm-hmm. You can never get enough of it. You've got to find it first in yourself. I'm good enough. I'm okay. And then, we all need some external validation, some external feedback. But a lot of women will be like, that is my lifeline. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, you got to give it to yourself first, girl.
So true. And I, when you said that about women, we are sort of looked at as, that she's such a bitch, or, they use the word all the time. I was recently talking to my very beautiful and young and smart niece, Isabella, who wants to publish a coffee book and put photos of all the bitches on it, because she's like, that's who I'm going after. I want to be just like them. Hillary Clinton, great. Sign me up. I want to, whoever, these lineups that we line up these women as, she's such a bitch. And my niece was like, those are my mentors. That's who I want to be like. I'm like, thank you, girl. Good job, you. But for being so young. So speaking of young, tell us, Laura, about how did you come to find your voice and find your worth? Because give us some little bit of background of your childhood.
Oh, God. We're going back. Okay.
We're going back. Memory lane.
Okay. So I guess, let me try to psychoanalyze myself on this podcast.
Perfect.
I grew up. Yeah, here we go. You guys can help me figure it out. I grew up here in Metro Detroit. My parents are Lebanese and Egyptian. And I always like to joke with people that I'm the whitest Arab anyone's ever met. If you are watching this on video, you will immediately notice that. It's like me and the sun in direct competition with each other. We're both just like so glaringly white. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
As soon as you logged on, I was like, oh, my sister. We're ghosts.
Right. I know. So I have never looked like my community. I have always felt like an outsider. And this is important, and I'll get to that in a second. But I remember I asked my mom, what was I like as a kid? And I was pretty shy. I was, once I found my people, I would, kind of be a little more outgoing. But she said, when you were 3 years old, the preschool teacher gave me some, feedback or whatever. And the preschool teacher said, your daughter is very self-possessed. I don't know where that comes from.
Okay.
Can you imagine a 3-year-old being self-possessed?
No.
But apparently I was. And so I was, like I said, in this Egyptian community primarily. And I really never felt like I belonged. I didn't speak the language. I didn't look like my dad. And I was constantly we would go to the Coptic church here, and which is Coptic. The Coptic faith is the faith primarily of Christians in Egypt. And so we go to the church, and I remember very clearly often growing up, and people grabbing my arm, which you can see how white it is, and holding it and looking at it and saying, how is it so white? And this is like a core memory of mine, is just being like, these people think I'm really different. So I think that part of the reason I do the stuff I do today is because I've always been desperate for community, for a feeling and a sense of belonging because I grew up feeling like I didn't belong. And so part of the reason that, I have my own community, which is called Elevate, and I do like community events and I love to speak with crowds and groups of people, is because I desperately wanted that as a kid and I never got it. And so sometimes one of the things I tell people is that, we do the thing that was lacking for us in childhood. We kind of, reparent ourselves in that way of like becoming what we were seeking.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's really driven me. Now, I just think personality wise, I've always been like a little spitfire. I've always spoken my mind. I mean, even as a kid, and that's just how I've been. Now, I'll tell you, I just want to wrap up this story about like what was going on with, my community and why I look so different. Well, the fact was that I was actually different and I didn't know it. It was when I was about 37, 38, that I went on 23andMe.
Wow.
And I discovered that my father who raised me was not my biological father. And I actually had 9 half siblings. So I know we're going in like a totally different direction. You're like, what the hell is this?
So you were adopted?
No, my parents had to use a sperm donor.
Okay.
Because my dad could not have kids and they never told me, even though I kind of asked them as an adult, like, come on, did mom like meet the mailman out back or whatever? And they said, no, 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 no. But they actually they were just too ashamed to talk about it. And so I discovered through the process of doing that, which was a huge shock, but now I have another community. And I have these amazing women who because there's 9, 8, there are 10 of us total, 9 of us are women, and then we have 1 boy. And this amazing community of other women and brother Nick, I don't want to leave him out, but of people to form a new family structure with, a new group structure with. And it's been one of the greatest gifts of my adult life, is meeting all of them. So I don't know. Did I answer the question? I don't even know.
Listen, it just feels like I could go in and I have so many questions now. So we'll pack it up though. You were still, even though, okay, I get the whole process of how you came to birth, but your environment was still very much traditional, set in a specific culture where similar to Latinas, women are still, they like to be seen and heard, not necessarily heard always. So I'm curious, you still found this voice and now you've elevated it, to use your program, to a place where you're saying things that are really disruptive and you're using language that is not ladylike. But yet, is that sort of like that? I feel that's, to me, that's when I raise my brow. I'm like, oh, what is she saying? I feel like you've got to shock these women into, hey, what is happening? Wake up. What are you doing? And you do that really well. But it sounds like you've just always had this spiciness about you, regardless of this traditional childhood in many ways.
I mean, I will say growing, I mean, it was a process. And to your point, I didn't really mention much of that, but I grew up in a pretty traditional, ethnic household, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with very traditional family roles. This is part of the reason. And I'm sorry, I'm going off on like 6,000 tangents. You're probably gonna be like, this is a 7-hour episode. What is she doing? But I grew up in a very traditional household. And part of what I grew up with was being told, you're going to get married, you're going to get a good job, you're going to stay at that job, and then you're going to retire, and then you're going to die. And that was kind of like the arc, right? And then maybe you'll have kids in there somewhere. That was the arc. And so when I, graduated high school, I did that. I got married very young. I got married at 22. I eventually did try to find like the corporate thing. I was trying to fit myself into what I was told I was supposed to be doing, which is, I think, where most of us start is like, okay, and I'm still like busting at the seams, as you can tell. I'm still me, like trying. It's like, imagine a person, in who's like a size 14 trying to fit into a size 4. It's like you just can't like get yourself in it, and you're just like trying to like suck it all in. And that's how it kind of felt. It was like, I am totally not, this isn't working for me. None of it's working for me. And every woman listening to this at some point or another has had that feeling of, this doesn't work. And I know it's wrong. And then the question for you becomes, you may not know exactly where you want to go yet. You may not know exactly what it looks like, but you know something needs to change. And we typically stop ourselves because we do not want to pay the cost. Mm-hmm. There is a cost to transformation. You must be willing to let go of something to have what is next. And I think about this a lot in the context of marriage. As someone who, I was married, I had an extremely tumultuous ending of my marriage, which had me running out of my house. I was actually without a home for 6 weeks, figuring out what to do with my life, terrified of my now ex-husband. I stayed in that marriage because I didn't want to pay the cost of divorce. I was scared of what would that mean? How would my life change? I didn't know. But you know what? Like I said in the beginning, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, you'll begin to transform. And I'll tell you, it was the best moment of my life, leaving.
So how do you do it when you're so scared though? You're painting this picture of, you're in a situation in marriage, you're young, you've been doing everything your parents told you to do. So you're checking all the boxes. Mm-hmm. And now it's time where you just know there's whispers in you saying, this is not it. This is not it. And when do you become brave enough? And that's interesting. That's why you named your company, to do that leap and jump over that fear or squash it and still do it. How do you pivot?
You just do it. Mm. There is never a good time. There's never a right time. There's never a better time. It doesn't exist. And I think I was waiting for it a lot, and I waited for it a lot in the corporate world for things to get better and things to change. And I realized I am in, it's funny. When I was 27 is when I got divorced. And I remember having a moment where I was very unhappy in my marriage. And I remember very clearly having this moment. I was sitting on the couch, a beautiful summer day, and I could hear in my head a voice screaming at me, you are in the wrong timeline. Like, I literally felt like if I stay in this, I am going in a direction that I am not meant to be going in. I am on the wrong timeline. I got to get off of this thing. And it's important for women to have support. It's important whenever you do any big change in your life to have support of others who can help you through it. I certainly did. And also, by the way, even though when I left my husband, support also appeared. It's interesting what will appear
when you take
when we start to take the leap. So like in that situation, it was a violent and scary situation. I ran out of the house with one piece of luggage, and I never went back. I was staying on friends' couches and, just sort of like going from place to place, trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do with my life. And a family who I met them over the, a few months prior, I sort of knew them, but not very well. They checked in with me to see what was going on. And they actually said, Laura, our entire basement is furnished and we don't use it. We want you to come stay with us. And they took me in for most of that duration to live with it. Now, I didn't really know these people very well, but that's my point, is like, things will appear.
Right.
People will show up and you won't realize it because you're trying to think about, there's a magical thing going on here, which is really hard to describe and hard to make people feel like they're ready, which is why they don't do things. But things start to appear. The minute you change, the universe changes with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't see that before you start doing it.
I find that
so you just got to do
so
it.
true. Yeah. I really find that to be so true. When I was listening to your story, I was thinking about there are a lot of stories like yours where there's a big catalyst, like there's an aggressive husband or an abusive situation, or an abusive boss, or a loss of a child, or some big catalyst that causes a change. But I'll use myself as an example because I think that there are a lot of women who, it's not a screaming voice in their head. It's just like a little unease. It's like a quiet whisper. I mean, maybe being a people pleaser, or, maybe following the directions has been working, working to such a degree that you can just kind of squash that little whisper. It's always there. But, I think about, in terms of like some of the expectations of women, and this is no choice of my own, but I think that if I'm honest, I've been able to maybe capitalize on some femininity or some expectations because I'm petite and I'm soft-spoken. And I tend to get like, even the men who hire me treat me like, oh, she's so cute and funny. And like, it's fun when she comes around. And so I capitalize on it because, we have to capitalize on what works for us.
Yeah.
But then there's like this unease inside of me that's like, there's something about this that's a little icky. Like, I am a badass. Like, I'm super creative or artistic, or I have more to offer than to just be like a little bright light for them once a month and, to make them smile. And, it's like, I feel sometimes like I'm gaining favor on something that, I don't have a lot to do with, right? You don't have a lot to do with how you look or how you sound or the mannerisms that, that have been acculturated into you. And so I think that there's like a whole other class of women that it's not a screaming loud voice. And Monica and I and Amy, who I'm sure you'll meet, we talk about that with the Kindling Project. Sometimes it's just a little tiny fire. It's just a little tiny whisper. But if it's been gnawing at you for 30, 40, 50 years, there is something else. There's something more. Yeah. Like, you've signed up, and also, just like the Justine Bateman conversation, good for you if it's working and you just want to sail off into the sunset. I'm not pushing anybody to be anything they don't want to be, but I really just want to ask the questions like, is there more? Is there more for me? Is there more for you? Like, are we settling? That's it's an important alternate timeline to yours of, hey, there's a whole bunch of women that, they look like they're doing just fine, but are they living their authentic self?
Well, speaking of authenticity, being authentic, I think what you said, Laura, about transformation, it's a process that takes you to a whole new level of living your fullest self. But there's a lot of naysayers in the beginning because you're doing things that it's really, you're going against the grain. Like, oh, you've been a certain way for X amount of years, and all of a sudden you're making a change. You are going to have a lot of naysayers, but a lot of people, we crawl, walk, run with transformation, and you're like sprinting. You're like
across the line. I feel that's kind of me of like, I'm doing this and now I'm doing this and I'm doing this and now I'm doing this because, I don't really land on either side.
I want to say a couple things. First is like, I'm telling these stories that sound like, oh my God, like things changed overnight. And in some cases they did. But also remember, this is like over the course of 20 years.
Right.
So there's like a lot of time when things are not going right. And those whispers, which I have also felt, turned into screams. And so I do deeply resonate with that. I think for some of us, it's, to your point, it starts with a whisper and then it gets louder and more persistent and more persistent. And we will have a tendency to seek an external source to fix it. That external source, and it's an inside job. It cannot be fixed on the outside. So it'll be like, well, maybe I need to take a vacation. Maybe I need to do more meditation. Maybe I need to do more. And these aren't bad things. But maybe you just need to be with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's about small steps in most cases. And they're often imperfect. You know, I said when I started my business, 6 weeks later, I got that huge contract and was doing really well. That is true. I have also experienced profound failure in business. And it has been both. And it continues. It's both and, you know, it's like success, failure, success, failure. And they all help me grow. We all grow right at the border of support and challenge. I can't just have one without the other. So part of what's informed me, frankly, in helping women grow their businesses is because I have failed at so many things and I've made so many mistakes, even with money moving forward. You know, it wasn't all fixed. That it's really informed what I do today. So I think it's embracing both sides. But I would say if you're feeling the whisper, if you're feeling like something needs to change, I would just get curious. And I would say to myself, like, what am I not doing? Like, when am I staying silent when I want to speak up? When am I acquiescing or subordinating when I actually want to say something or be something different? There's this great book called Not Nice. It is written by a psychologist. I cannot remember his name right now, but it's all about people pleasing and how people pleasers are often plagued by incredible amounts of anxiety because they're constantly trying to mold themselves to, you know, make other people feel okay, and other people still don't feel okay. So then they feel even more inadequate. And it's a wonderful, like I just mentioned it because it's such a great resource. And I think that there is something about going back to what we talked about earlier in our conversation. There's something about if it works for you, like I said, we use every trait we have because it benefits us. And Melissa, if your traits are to be more soft-spoken because that comes naturally to you, and to use your appearance to help further things, girl, fucking use it. Like, I don't got any issue with it.
It's a conscious decision, but I recognize it now at 50, right? I recognize.
Yeah, so what?
Did I pick any of this? Like, some of these things that are working for me, like, you know, so they're working because society likes them, or men like them, or, you know, it's non-threatening. Basically, what you were saying is that you were getting this feedback of don't be threatening. And I rarely get that feedback, right? Even my kids are not afraid of me. And it isn't really a conscious choice. It's just how I showed up in the package I showed up in, probably how I was raised. I do have a lot of people-pleasing trait, but I'm just getting to a point where I just want to throw it off. Like, I find myself in a role, basically. I find myself in a role that has worked. And whether or not it works doesn't mean it's a good fit for me. It doesn't mean it's really authentically my voice.
Yeah.
Just, you know, at an early age worked, right? That's how you got what you wanted.
And so you just keep doing it. Well, you know, one of the things I always tell my clients is that, you know, we spend the first half of our life putting on masks. The mask of, in your case, mother, wife, good employee, good boss, entrepreneur, whatever it may be. We put on all these masks to kind of get by, to make it work, you know, and we really spend the second half of our life learning how to take them off.
So true.
Yes.
And that's okay. And that's a beautiful experience. And there's no rush.
You just summed up exactly what I was trying to say in one sentence. I'm just at that, like, you know, it must have been, this is my 50th year right now. It was something about turning 50. Like, I need to shake some of this shit off. Even if it works.
Shake up. And actually, to be honest with you, I would actually use your language as a clue for what you need to do. Because a lot of times we're saying what we need to do and we don't realize it. So you said, I need to shake it off. Girl, get up and fucking move. Dance.
Right.
If you need to shake it off, literally listen to that. Say, I'm going to go move my body. And I'm not going to move my body with my husband, with my kids, with other people that I need to manage and be around to do it. I'm going to sit in my office or go outside during the middle of the day and I'm going to run around and I am going to look like a lunatic.
Yeah.
It's so
That's
liberating.
what I'm talking about.
I
Just
love
go
that
do
idea.
that. Seriously, go do it. There's this Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way. She writes a wonderful idea that I want to share with the audience, which is about taking yourself without your children, without your spouse, and without your friends or family, taking yourself once a week on a date.
I loved that book.
And
it's
great.
I did the pages. I did the morning pages for 10, 20 years. Yeah.
They're amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So if we for 1 minute say, and I try to do this as much as I can, and our typical reaction will be, okay, I'm going to go do it. And then we'll immediately try to talk ourselves out of doing it. Like, oh, no. Actually, okay, I should just go to Costco or the grocery store instead. No, go do it. Go sit at a bar, go sit at a park, whatever you want to try, go do it by yourself. And that will feel scary at first. But if you do it regularly, that's how we get back in touch with this beautiful, amazing woman who is looking at us in the mirror every day. And you're like, what does she want? Mm-hmm. This is a process. It's an unfolding.
Even the child is in there. Yeah. I know in Michigan, for yesterday was like our first nice day, right? In forever and ever. Yeah. And I had the strongest urge to go out in the backyard and jump on the trampoline. Like, but I would not do that because I would feel like a lunatic, right? Like this, what is Melissa doing out jumping on the trampoline?
You got to do it.
I just had this sort of urge of like the sun was shining and I really did think about it like at least half a dozen times, like about just jumping up.
Melissa, you've got to go do it today. You have to. That's your heart singing. Yeah. Saying, please help me sing my song louder.
Yeah.
And also saying, and I'm a little scared because I might look weird.
Yeah.
And that's a very small act of courage. It has absolutely really no consequences.
Right.
Like
it has no consequences. If I jump on the trampoline in my backyard and the little boys in the house behind me think I'm a nut, like what are the consequences?
Who gives a shit? Even if your neighbors, the adults see you, they're probably going to look at you and be like, oh my God, she looks like she's having a lot of fun. I haven't done that.
Is she high?
Yeah. No, Wayne Dyer says,
like maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes from Wayne Dyer is, don't die with your music in you, inside of you, or some, I'm paraphrasing, but that's true. What you're saying, Laura, is like, listen to that music and play it really loud. And I know that's what we're doing with the Kindling Project. We're really nudging and poking women to please sing. We are creating a stage for you. Get up there, do your thing. Yeah. But Laura, you're such a great listener and you really pay attention to details. So I can see why you're such an amazing coach. So let's talk about your business and what you do every day to help not only women, by the way, you work with women and men too, but I think you're leaning in with women mostly.
I target women, but I work with men who come in as well.
Okay. So tell us about your company. Yeah.
So Brave by Design is really focused on helping women unlock that thing within them. In terms of business, I have a program that's called Elevate that is a mastermind program to help women who are already running their own businesses be surrounded by other successful women who are growing their businesses. And we also give them tools and strategies to help them get to the next level, whatever that is for them. For new businesses, I have a self-study course where they can actually learn how to get their business off the ground. It's an amazing program. And then I work with a lot of individuals on stuff like what we're talking about today, leaning into fear, developing the habit of courage. doing these kinds of things. Because I keep I keep flying my own freak flag, ladies. I mean, that's honestly what I just keep doing. And I help other women do that as well as they come in and want to work with me on that, and especially a lot of leaders. So I have a podcast. It's called Big Deal Energy. So if you are interested if you're in business, you're interested in going after bigger deals, you can go read that. I've got a newsletter where I provide one tip every week for growing your business. And that's it, ladies. That's what I got.
Listen, and you're a very talented writer too. I really enjoy reading the blogs that you post because you take like everyday experiences, life as it's happening to you, and you translate it into something that helps women grow their business or, just some really helpful advice. So that's really, I wanted to shout out to your blog there. It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Some of the things, Laura, that
all of that, right, Monica?
Yeah. Exactly. Laura, some of the things that you talk about that some of the messaging in reading through your work is I picked up on a few things like allow yourself time to grow. You talk a lot about that, like set a goal and allow it to almost like a garden. You got to plant the seed, you got to water it, you got to tend to it. Yeah. Give us some of your other fun tips.
So the main thing with anything in life, anything, is consistency. Most of us are impatient and we want something right now because we live in a society where I can go get something right now. Life doesn't work that way. Business does not work that way. So the first thing I'll say is whatever you're trying to do, it's going to take longer than you think. Keep that in mind. And the only way to move forward is being consistent and focusing. Don't run around chasing freaking shiny objects. Focus on an object and spend 1 year on it. People talk a lot about feeling overwhelmed. They talk a lot about, oh my God, I'm just like doing so many things and I'm going in so many directions and oh my God, how do I keep it all together? We do less is how we keep it together. We focus more is how we keep it together. And we take small steps every single day. This is the antidote to overwhelm, in my opinion. Women take on way too much shit. They think they can do way too much. And it's ridiculous. Again, I've done it too. It's stupid. So if you don't actually want to live that life anymore, focus. Do it consistently. Like anyone would give you this if you had a weight loss goal or a weight gain goal, or you wanted to run a business. It's the same tips. This is universal knowledge. And I just want to say one more thing. Anyone who is the laws of this universe are not super complex. It's actually pretty fucking simple. And I want to say that because you will meet teachers, guides, and gurus who will make you think it's harder than it is to validate why you have to work with them because they have some sort of secret to impart on you and you have to pay for it. That is fucking snake oil. All right. It is not that hard. What you pay for help with is clarity, consistency, focus, accountability, and a partner and a co-pilot to help you as you walk through it. Not because it's a secret that you can't find out on your own. That's I just say that because sometimes we see a lot of if I learn this tool or this technique or this methodology, you don't need any of it. You just need to focus.
Well, here's another Laura-ism that I picked up that I read. He said, you don't need another certificate. You don't need another degree. No. You don't need to wait for anyone to give you permission. Let's model for the next generation how good it can be to have financial power over our business and lives. I mean, you say it all the time and you live it. So I love that.
We are already overeducated. And by the way, Black women are the most overeducated of anyone in the United States. They are so highly credentialed. It's unbelievable. And it's frankly ridiculous that they are not paid what they deserve to be paid for that level of credentialing. You do not need to keep chasing credentials. I do a whole talk on imposter syndrome. And and the desire to keep going after another degree, another diploma. I'll be ready when. If you ever hear yourself say, I will be ready when, you are fucking lying to yourself. You are ready now. Right. This is it. And that doesn't mean making a big life altering change necessarily in your life. It means I'm going to get on that trampoline and I'm going to fucking bounce my heart out. I am going to go shake it off. I am going to go take a walk because I want to. That's what it means.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm totally catching what she's throwing down, Mel. What about you?
Oh, 100%,
100%, right?
1,000,000%, right? I feel like I definitely suffer from overwhelm. I definitely suffer from people pleasing. I definitely say yes to way, way too many things. I mean, my calendar looks like, like a Hackney painting, right? Like it's just splattered with meetings and colors and overcommitment. Yeah. And I am like itching to jump on the trampoline or spend a month painting or to let go of some of this shit. And even like I was saying, like shake off some of these roles. And even if the outside world would be like, why would you want to get rid of that? It's working for you. Like, well, because I didn't pick it, folks.
Yeah. Because I don't feel like it anymore. It's not bringing me joy. It's not making me smile. Yeah, and
it's not to denigrate anybody or any success of my own. It's just to shake it off, to get more aligned, right? And I think we, Amy and I, when we started the Kindling Project, we said the Kindling Project is our Kindling Project, and our Kindling Project is like talking to women about like, hey, let's put some kindling on those little fires that have been put out, that are dimmed, that they just really actually need a little fanning. They're going to like they're going to take off in every single one of us if we just give it a little air. And so,
but I do appreciate the point that you make, like niching down. I really focus and do one thing really well. I think that makes a lot of sense because to your point, I know we're having that problem ourselves with the Kindling Project, but we can't be everything to everyone. And we've got to decide because we can be pulled with our online community, with, specific events, which we want to do everything. We want to hold larger events. We want to have you on stage. We want to create content, do the podcast. And at some point you start thinking, okay, go back to our why. We've got to really understand, you got to understand your why, and then do that. Right?
Yeah. May I speak to that quickly?
Please.
Because this is a very common
We're getting some free coaching by having you on our podcast.
You are. Here we go, ladies. So here's what happens. We see, and I'm going to use Oprah because it's a very universal example. We see the Oprahs of the world who have huge audiences, who do she's got a weight loss company, she's got a magazine, she's got a TV thing, she's got a billion things going on. And we see that and we say, wait a minute, I'm super inspired. Like, I want to be like that. And if it's not Oprah for you, pick whoever it is for you. It's someone who's, big, right? And they're doing all this stuff and they're talking to all kinds of people. And you think, well, I want to stand on the shoulders of giants. I want to emulate them. Here's the problem. What nobody realizes is they didn't start that way.
And it's not an individual. It's a corporation.
It's a friggin' corporation. It's
assigned to an individual. Yeah. But these are thousands of men and women and their dreams and their visions being able to take place in the universe because of Oprah. They're not Oprah.
100%.
I think that's...
They're not you, and you're not Oprah. 100%. It's like trying to go to it's trying to be like, let's say, a 5-star restaurant on like a KFC budget. You just don't have the ability to do it. And that's why we get so overwhelmed. And so I would say you don't have those resources. You have yourself and maybe a small team if you're lucky. Scale it back. And so what happens is by really getting narrow in the beginning, it gives us the freedom to expand as we go. But when we start very broad in the beginning, we actually impede our ability to grow because we are trying to serve too many masters. And so narrow down in the beginning. Get really clear in the beginning. And yes, it will alienate people in the beginning, but great marketing, as you all know, great marketing attracts and repels. And that's kind of the point. We got to find our people. We got to find our tribe. We got to find who's right for us.
Right.
And then as we grow, we can open and expand, but you cannot start that way. And that's what most people try to do. And it's honestly, it's what makes me crazy. So
yeah,
you want to see me get really crazy? Talk about people refusing to niche down. Makes me nuts.
We might be making Monica a little crazy, because I do tend to be a little bit prone to shiny objects and let's try this and let's try this, and like a mixer and a matcher and a mind changer. And it's not, I'm not actually really a scatterbrain. Like, I do actually have a method to my madness, but I do like to try a lot of things, and I kind of like to see what works and what fits. And I think there's like this nice tension between Monica and I, because she's a little bit more analytical and mathematical, and let's do the research and let's pick one thing and let's start. And so we're bouncing this sort of what to do, what not to do. 1 year in.
Well,
it's a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would just say, if I may, is that like it all starts with like the strategy of like, okay, what are we trying to achieve in this year? Mm-hmm. Like, where are we actually trying to go? And I say this more to my business clients, but I'll say it to you because we're talking about it. And I say this as a marketer, by the way. I am a marketer by trade. Marketing does not get us clients. Marketing gets us awareness. It's what we do with that awareness all on the back end that gets us clients. So marketing will get people to check us out and say, oh, what are they about? What's going on here? And then they're going to look at all of our credibility markers and foundation of our business and what we do and how we help. And if that's specific enough and it talks directly to that market, solving their burning problems, they're going to say, oh, I think they're for me. We're going to then have opportunities to earn trust with that market, and people always buy according to the amount of trust we've earned with them. But trust is earned at different rates with different people. We bring in clients, we know how to have conversations, we bring in clients, we work with them, they refer more great people to us, and it's a virtuous cycle. But what I say to all of my clients as a marketer is we get the foundation down first of who we serve, what problem we solve, like what real burning problem do I actually solve? And who do I serve? And then we actually do all the marketing after. And what products and services do I sell? Like, what is actually, like, what am I doing here? And then we get that down in some V1, then we start the marketing. But most people, and I'm not saying this is y'all, I don't know, but a lot of people will start marketing way too soon without having those things in place. And so they'll hear this. I see you everywhere. I've heard this a lot. Oh my God, you're everywhere, Laura. It looks like I see your stuff on LinkedIn. I see your newsletter. I see you here. I see you there. And I would say, but why aren't you buying? Because they kept saying, I see you everywhere. So, bitch, why don't you buy a fucking product from me?
Yeah.
What is going on with you? And it was because I did not have a clearly enough defined target market, because I think I'm fucking Oprah. I did not have a clearly enough defined target market. I did not have a clearly enough defined problem that I solved. So I just built up a bunch of awareness. It's like putting your foot on the gas, but the car is still in park.
Mm-hmm. So good.
Such
really good advice. So talk about where are you heading? Where's your business? What are you focusing on this year?
You know what? I'm going to be really honest with you. I am in the midst of a lot of big changes.
Ooh.
My favorite.
Tell us more.
I know. And it's funny because I would love to tell you more about it, but I'm still like working through what it looks like. I'll tell you this. Before I started Elevate, which is my program to help women grow their consulting businesses, before I started that, I was doing some work for the Joseph Campbell Foundation. I used to consult for them. And if you don't know who that is, it's not a big deal.
I do. Joseph, who that is.
Yeah. Mythologist, historian. He created this thing called the hero's journey, which is an amazing archetype. Just for anyone who's listening, just a really cool guy, and his work really changed my life. And so I consulted for them prior to this about storytelling and about how do we share our stories with the world and how do we engage in the world to reimagine our own story. And I feel right now very called to do more of that work. So I don't know what it looks like right now. You're catching me really, I'm kind of in a dark night of the soul type situation with this stuff. I have a coach who's like, we're working on my brand and developing this. But just to be like super honest, because most people wouldn't be, they'd put on their fucking mask and be like, oh, I'm going to tell you, fuck that shit. I am figuring that out right now. I'm figuring it out, ladies. So Elevate is there. It's a great program. It's got great legs on it. And I'm figuring out how I want to help others tell their stories, but also like we were talking about with the trampoline, embody, because there's a physical felt experience that needs to happen in transformation. So I'm thinking a lot about play shops I want to run, like camps I want to run, things I want to do to help women play and experience and feel alive and rewrite their own personal mythology. So.
Oh, that's so fun. Please invite us. We can't wait. Okay. Can we play a little game with you? Let's just have like a little one word association type thing. So we'll give you a couple words and you say whatever comes to mind. I mean, if you want to just stick to one word, that's helpful, but you can speak as long as you want.
This is a
You're
very
a
dangerous
guest.
game for me because I'll probably say lots of bad words. Okay,
that's okay.
Go ahead.
So, and Mel, jump in if you have a word. Okay. Brave.
By design.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's like my company. So I'm like, brave. Well, that's a name. So I'm sorry, design. Yeah, that's what came to me.
Beauty.
Health.
Love.
Love.
Stage.
All.
Story.
Telling.
Animals.
Yes. Which is interesting because I have 2 dogs. So now I'm feeling like, what the fuck, Laura? But yeah.
Okay. Salsa.
That's what your dogs are thinking too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, Laura, why are you abandoning us in this moment? I'm sorry, what was the other one?
Salsa.
Dancing.
Kids.
No.
Dang. Okay.
Sorry.
No?
Sorry. Okay.
Oh, don't be
for
sorry.
anyone listening, I apologize. But no, not for me. Not for me.
I love that you know that. Knowing that is so important because for so many women, you're a little bit younger than us, right? We're Mel's.
I'm almost 43.
Okay.
Yeah, but you know what I'll say? I just want to say something briefly about that. Kids are not for me. However, I do feel that children appear for all of us, whether we're mothers of our own children or bonus moms or whatever. I do feel that children appear in different forms. I do feel very much a mother to my clients in the best way possible. I do feel a mother to my students. So it appears for me in that form, but not in the form of my own children.
And I want to say something about this because I think about this as a mother. We're all raising the next generation, whether we birthed them or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually one of the
true.
It's one of the loveliest, most beautiful things about having kids, and it's also one of the scariest because that means someone on TikTok is also raising your 14-year-old boy, right? And so,
great point.
I think you know whether or not you choose parenthood, it's only part of the choice. Like you're living, you're modeling, you're breathing, you're sharing.
Yeah.
We're all raising the next generation.
I agree. And I think about that too, Mel. I know that I've had conversations with Lise, your sweet daughter, or just seeing my neighbor's kids. And, you know, you don't think much of it, but maybe that 5 or 10 minutes, the younger generation, they're paying attention. Or they're rolling their eyes and think we're fucking idiots. Nonetheless, they do give us, a minute.
Yeah. And somewhere between 5 and 8, they really shift the amount of attention they pay to you to the amount of attention they pay to others, right?
Right.
So, yeah, that scale is moving all the time. And, you can say something to my daughter that I've been saying for 10 years, but it clicks. It clicks when it comes from the outside.
So true.
You know what's really interesting is, to your point, I have these, I just bought my house last year in this great neighborhood, and I have this neighbor with kids next door. And I've started to think, like, how could I be a really great neighbor to these kids?
Right.
Like, because I didn't really have very engaged neighbors growing up. And I'm like, what would make like a great, like, how could I be like a nice role model to them? I've been thinking a little bit about that. So I love that point. We are all mothers to others. Absolutely.
Laura, I've got the answer for you. Just be you.
Okay.
That would make you pretty amazing.
Cool.
Neighbor.
Yeah.
You're all set. You're all set.
Yeah. And that's actually the answer for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So true. So Mel, any other questions?
Oh gosh, this has been just such a fun conversation. I haven't even looked down to be like, did we miss something we wanted to ask? Like, I've just enjoyed the chit chat. I really don't have any other questions. I agree with Monica. Sign us up. We're already fans of yours.
Okay.
I was already a fan of yours before I officially met you, and I feel like our messaging and our mission is very aligned, and
totally.
I'm so grateful that you came and you shared all of this sort of sage advice today with our listeners.
Well, thank you for having me. I mean, I know that I know that I have sort of potentially led you down 4,000 different paths during this conversation. So people are like, who is this woman? What's going on with her? But that's just kind of, that's life.
That's real.
Life,
That's how real conversation is. Sometimes, you have a podcast as well. So sometimes you kind of start with the script, and sometimes you have a guest who really wants to stick to a script and they want to talk about their book and they don't want to talk about their childhood. But that's really not, in my experience, especially with women, how conversation goes.
Oh, and they're the worst interviews. I have to, because having had a show, and I had a podcast that was in the top 125 of Apple Podcasts, I had on people who were fucking boring as shit. No offense to them, but they were, because they only wanted to stick to the script. And it's like, that is like, take off your mask for a second and get real with us.
Share.
I think these are the juiciest conversations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So remind everybody. Sorry. Go ahead, Mel.
Oh, I wanted to say, we've had a similar experience also with some of the most fascinating women that we love in real life weren't able to show up in this format.
Yeah,
and
it's hard.
And you get done and you're like, oh my gosh, like I was like, we didn't get it out of her. Like, is it a failure for us, or is it a failure of the medium, or we got to go back and do that again?
And if you're not ready to share your story and not open up, we can't force people to do or say anything. I think Laura is just a great example of someone who shows up. You're so authentic. It shows up in everything you do. It's just who you are. And that's why I gravitate towards you, because the language you use, the way you do it, you're so approachable and so relatable, and you're one of us. I'm like, yes, this girl gets it. I think if not everyone has that backbone, if you will.
Well, let me just say one more thing. I know we're probably way over, but let me just say this. We have to have the courage to be disliked. And in fact, I know I'm disliked. I think it is a very natural law of the universe that not everyone is going to like you. Because let me ask you this. Do you like everyone?
Right.
No,
Yeah.
you don't. And that's fucking normal as shit. That is the most normal thing on the planet, to not like everyone. And so if someone's listening to this and doesn't like me, that's absolutely okay. God bless you. There's somebody else out there whose message may resonate more with you. And I fully honor that. And it doesn't, again, I'm not looking to a random person to give me my self-worth. If it resonates, awesome. If it doesn't, awesome. But I always say to my clients, you can expect about 20% of people to be fucking obsessed with you. Like, they love you. They want everything to do with you. Yeah. Okay. I got at least one here, right? They're obsessed. I have people come to me and they're like, I'm stalking you. I'm like, great. Thank you. So like, they're all over it. They're following you. Great. Then you're going to have about 50% of people who are like, yeah, she's cool right now. Okay, cool. Got it. Cool. Whatever. And then you're going to have a bottom, let's say about 30. Some of those people are going to be like, that's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like what she says. I don't like that she swears. I don't like blah, blah, blah. I don't relate to it. Great. And then you have of that 30%, a bottom 10% are going to be like, I hate that bitch. I can't stand her. I think she is ridiculous. I think she's over the top. I hate her attitude. It's normal. And it is to be expected. You cannot please everyone. Don't try. It is a losing strategy. You don't like everyone. I don't like everyone. And that's normal.
Yeah, Laura, but I spent many years being offended. I'm like, why don't you like me? Like, I'm really a nice person. And, it took me a minute. I'm like, you're right. Fuck you. I don't care. I'm good.
I kind of feel like two things. I want all the energy back that I put into trying to be likable to that bottom 20, 30%. And I want all the energy back I put into trying to lose weight. If I just had both of those sources of energy, like if I could bottle them and give them back to myself, can you even imagine the shit I could get done?
Oh, I feel that. I feel that deeply. I feel that. Yes. And a lot of women listening, I'm sure, we spend so much time. I often think to myself, if I had spent less time worrying about the number on the scale, imagine what I could have done with my life.
Huh. I know. I know. Or be
who gives a shit about what it's ridiculous.
These are my two, and it is universally. I mean, not every woman, of course. I can't speak for all women, but most of the girls I know and love, like, we've dumped energy into these holes.
Yep.
I know.
Okay, well, Laura, we'll have you back for that conversation because I think, Mel, you have another podcast to record.
Oh, yeah, I got to record another podcast today.
So really quickly, Laura, tell everyone how to find you. Here. Laura, tell everyone how to find you.
Head over to bravebydesign.net. All of my info is there. You can sign up for courses. You can sign up for freebies to get your business up and running. And go find me on LinkedIn, Laura Khalil. You can go find me on there. I'm sure my name will be in the show notes. And connect and say how you found me. And I'd love to get to know you.
Great. Okay, one final thing. We always do a final shout out, Laura, to anyone, any person, anything that happened this week that you just want to clap it out for or say thank you. So here's your opportunity.
I want to say thank you to you all.
You're welcome.
Like, honestly, like, this has been so cool. I'm so glad that you basically found me at this event because I wouldn't have remembered you.
Up the stairs at the Shinola Hotel. This is my story.
So weird.
I'm sticking to it. So weird.
It's just crazy.
Yes.
And I just want to say thank you for I can come on this show and I can share this stuff and I can be talking because I have done many podcasts, I can be talking to a brick wall. I am talking to women right now who want to engage on these conversations, who also want to show up fully in the conversation. And that is honestly, like, I have so much energy right now leaving this call to help fuel the rest of my day. I want to thank you for that because that actually fills me up. So thank you for being present. Thank you for being receptive. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I love what you're doing because the Kindling Project, with these amazing, fearless leaders running it, like, who wouldn't want to be a part of it? Like, come on, y'all are fucking awesome bitches. Let's go.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're in. Yeah.
So Mel, how about you?
I am going to shout out today. This call is like, I guess we're only on Thursday, but this whole week has been confirming to me the idea of kindling. I don't know. I think I texted you last week, Monica, that, oh my God, Michelle Obama's using the word Kindle. And last year when I wanted to call this project the Kindling Project, a lot of people were like, what is that? But just this idea of putting a little kindling on fires. It has been confirmed to me over and over again this week, even in this conversation. Oh, we're hitting on something. It's resonating. The universe, like you said, is answering the intention, and women are getting it. And I'm like, huh, this is giving me a little pep in my step now. I don't have to explain it so many times. It's just,
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I agree with you. So my final shout out is to my niece, Isabella. She's young, she's brave. And Laura, some of the things that you were saying, I can't wait to have her follow you because she, she's gone through a lot in her very young life, has had a lot of loss, and yet she picks up herself every day. And sometimes she has to put on that mask because that's all she's got for the day. But slowly but surely, we're really working hard on her never having to wear another mask in her life. So hopefully this inspires her that we're here to help her and uplift these young people, young women who need it.
Well, she's very lucky to have you. And I just think the whole community is really lucky to have you both. You are amazing. And thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone. Tune in next week as we explore keeping it right size with Lindsay Heck. And remember, it only takes one spark to ignite the fire. Thanks so much. See you next time.